So thank you guys for taking part in this discussion, and this sort of, I'll do a preamble around this. I wrote a piece during the year about the new sort of MadTech middleware and how that technology layer is going to fundamentally change over the next 10 years. So we sort of dined out on the cookie, and a lot of companies got sold, which were kind of quasi-ad networks in many respects, rather than actual technology. But as we go into this world of first-party data and fragmentation, we're probably going to need a new sort of type of MadTech middleware. So more about enablement, more about actually delivering value to the constituent players. And what I mean by that, the publishers, the marketers, and the agencies. Because a lot of them will have their own data, and a lot of them will be looking for technology that enhances what they're doing, right, across all these different new channels and across the fragmented world. So I'm ably joined by people who actually can talk about this at a higher level than I can. And I want to start sort of with the technologists or the people running the ad tech businesses on the panel. I want to talk about this impact we're having right now, and this sort of shift from where we were last year to this new reality. So we'll start with you, Ben, and talk a little bit about what you guys do, because it'll be interesting for the crowd.
Yeah, so Alchemy Exchange is decentralized infrastructure, essentially. It's changing the way that ads will be traded to a much more transparent, instant, auditable means, because we have the benefit of using a blockchain, right? Like, the beauty of a blockchain is that everything is written onto it, it falls into consensus before it can even exist on there, and once it's on the blockchain, that is it, that's the story. So I think a lot of what we've heard, not today, but yesterday, was around measurement, transparency of measurement, and at Alchemy Exchange, we really believe that a quick, fast blockchain, which is what we're building on, is the key to doing that. So we're very excited. We're going a bit too deep, but I think, there's a bit of a pushback right at the moment, and big companies are talking about blockchain-based product. Facebook or metaverses are centered around the NFT, hosted on a blockchain, and creating a new digital experience which hasn't existed so far. So it's happening. I mean, CryptoPunks are getting sold for millions of dollars. Nike are releasing NFTs. It's happening now. There's adoption happening for blockchain, and we're just excited to bring that to the ad tech world, basically.
Okay, so talking about the current infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
We have a situation, and there's been a lot of emails around sort of cases, etc. I'm not going to go into detail, but take rates were exposed as being very, very high.
Yeah.
So the future we see is particularly what you're doing, right? Because you're infrastructure execution layer. So do you see that world changing where take rates come down, and effectively a lot of that middleman or middlewoman tech is become commoditized?
Yeah, and I think that the financial world's a really great market to look at. There was, in the early 1990s, people literally drilling through mountains to try and get a faster connection so they're able to short the guy that sat next to them. And I think what that really was taking innovation out of the middle and taking it to the edges. I think what we see a lot of in ad tech right now is there's a lot of great innovation that happens in the middle, but that clogs the pipes. So you have discrepancies, you have potential for ad fraud, it's just not effective. So what we're trying to do is much like the banking world, the innovation is the product, and then Goldman Sachs will then IPO that product, and then all that happens is the trading in between, right, to the people that are buying the stock at the end of the day. And we're not at that point yet, I don't think, with ad tech, and I think that really needs to happen to kind of get all the mud and the inefficiencies out of the middle layer and take it to the edges where kind of the innovation should be happening, in my opinion.
So let's talk a bit about that, right? Adam, your technology is about, you don't care what's in the middle. You in fact, you thrive in fragmentation. But your technology is about enabling your clients to have types of insights. And I think this is what Ben was talking about, is, the world has changed, right? I think the buy side and the sell side are looking for technology that enhances their businesses rather than takes margin away. And I think we sort of got sucked into this world where 20% or 30% take rates were always a given, which in fact is not really what are they doing. So talk about from a buy side perspective and what how you work with your clients.
All right. So 59A is a company which creates, manages, evolves, and learns from custom algorithms. So that's what we do. Yesterday's conversation was interesting, actually. because of a lot of concern over cookies and IDs and stuff like that. But what we do is what you're actually suggesting, that the central parts are all commoditized and we don't care. So we work in 3 stages for our clients. There's thinking, which is the creation of the custom algorithms. There's the doing, which is then the execution of them. And then there's the learning. So we go through thinking, doing, and learning. Now in the thinking phase, we look at vast volumes of data sets from all different types of sectors. So we have about 7 different themes of data. It can be performance data from everything which you've ever done. It can be customer data from any customer data set which you've got, any CRM system which you've got. It can be consumer data sets, who is your target audience. It can be competitive data sets. It can be location orientated. It can be industry orientated. It can be seasonality orientated. And within those 7 different buckets, there's loads and loads and loads of different themes. So it can vary greatly. You know, we look at the AA, for example, and we found the information regarding every single road traffic accident last year. We need the location, the time, the weather conditions, the road classification. And we took that information, the hotspots, across the entirety of the country, and we took in weather feed data, and then we updated the custom algos in real time to then raise awareness of road incidents, accidents, so on and so forth. Now, I won't linger too many, but there's loads and loads and loads of different examples. And the reason why that's important is because I don't say the word cookie. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about is it executed on TikTok or Snapchat or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or CTV or digital out of home. None of that matters. It obviously matters, don't get me wrong. But those are more the commoditized central parts. They're not the beginning, middle, and end. And our system takes those data sets, joins them together, finds the insights, finds the opportunities at huge levels, produces the custom algorithms, loads them into the executional platforms, all cookieless data. If there are cookies, we use it, but all these data sets don't rely upon it. Executes across all these different platforms, pulls out the information from whatever system we've got access to, pushes it through machine learning systems, and that's a whole separate subject in terms of machine learning. I think AI is an easy-to-use phrase to confuse everything and just shroud it in mystery. Machine learning is just statistical mathematics. That's what it is. It's great, but it looks at more data more often in more detail with advanced maths. It's a 5-second pitch, not an hour-and-a-half pitch around AI. That's our doing system. It's called Quartz, our technology. That automates a lot of things. That's addressing resource challenges, which is a different problem than the thinking phase, which is about creativity. And then in the learning phase, you're learning loads of new stuff you didn't know before because your design at the beginning is more business-orientated.
So you're creating utility for your customers, effectively. You're creating a product that they need to make. And I think I want to bring that question to Lisa. Is like, if from your perspective, from a buy-side perspective, like what should be the client should be looking for in terms of the next level of MadTech middleware? Like, so, and 59A is a good example of a buy-side entity that's kind of evolving to the changing sort of ecosystem. And Alchemy's looking at the sort of take rate heavy middleware and trying to commoditize that. But from your perspective, Lisa, what do you think that a marketer or an agency should be looking for in the next sort of, is it actually solving those real problems?
I think in terms of, for a marketer, it's being able to look at whatever middleware, MadTech, that you want to implement and be able to bring it in on an omni-channel view. As you said, you can use all different channels in terms of the data that you've got. And for a marketer, I think that's vitally important because you have got a cohesive story right across all your channels. Whereas, the whole conversation about what is MadTech middleware, everybody's got a different opinion. But it does lead to a lot of fragmentation. And whilst fragmentation is good, you need to have some cohesive points to be able to join those dots. You don't want to have a stack here and a stack there, and you don't want to try and plug this in here, and you've got a client over there that wants this, that, and the other, and you've got another client there that wants this, that, and the other. That's fine if you are maybe one of the big opcos, and you can do something for the greater good across a range of clients. If you are one of the big independent agencies or small independent agencies, that doesn't work. And that's where you do see the take rates between the buy side and the sales side, because you're trying to be something for everybody, and tech stacks don't do that. Whereas solutions like 59A do give you a much broader omni-channel view.
I think the other thing, just chuck into that, is simplicity is a key thing to the whole
Very
game
much
as well. So I think some of the guy who did the singing on the stage yesterday was an absolute legend. Triple Lift, I don't know who he was.
He was great, actually.
That was amazing.
We'll share that video. That was
he was talking about, one of the slides I think was talking about who's responsible for certain different things. Now, as far as I'm concerned, being a technology-based business, complexity of how these systems are designed and built sits with me, and it's on me as a technology sector worker to solve that solution and make it simple so that the users of the technology can do it in a simple manner.
Well,
it's not
exactly.
So
that's
the
very much it.
Friction. I mean, I'm going to pass to Natasha here because you've worked on many of these middleware type companies, legacy ones. So I mean, is that ringing true for you in terms of what your clients are looking for from technology and technology adoption?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody in this room knows there are always so many unnecessary businesses in the midst of every single transaction.
There is a lot of unnecessary businesses. And after
None up here, though.
And they're not sponsors of this event, by the way, because all our sponsors are necessary, so thank you.
There's unnecessary steps that aren't always necessarily valid for every single transaction, but we feel like we have to use them, we have to implement that tech because it's what's expected. But in reality, the vast majority of those products could really come under one very simple umbrella. And there's really no need necessarily for there to be those 10 different steps of money coming out here, there. I think you were very generous when you said 30%. I think it's closer to 50. And I think, 30,
I was being
30%,
generous.
30% of that, we don't even know where it goes. It's untraceable. And at this time, that's just not acceptable, I don't think. So products like this, they're simple, they're efficient, they're still small, so they're able to pivot and be quick and adapt to what the industry needs as new products and environments continue to grow and develop. I think it's super exciting. And I think in 2 or 3 years, the whole ecosystem is going to look completely different.
How do you think it will look? I'm just curious, because do you think there'll be less companies in the middle, less execution layers, maybe a few scale commoditized plays that take maybe 2-3% for media execution, and then as Adam's talked about there, the value then becomes on the fringes that actually we actually might build tech that might be interesting. So, you know, like from a publisher's point of view, if we move beyond just open market RTB, right, and it's just a server-to-server integration or a PG element to it, will we see innovation around yield management? Like, I still haven't seen anything that's doing well. But how do you see that sort of fringe looking at? Yeah, well, go to you.
So I think it's interesting where there's like lots of siloed tech stacks, right? But I don't necessarily agree with that because they're all glued together by OpenRTB, right? Like every single programmatic ad solution right now uses OpenRTB to deliver ads. So actually there is a huge amount of continuity in the tech industry, and the fact that these different servers, the hundreds of businesses in ad tech can speak to each other is nothing short of a miracle, frankly. I think the issue we have around defining measurement and understanding what's good or not is just this, like, from a macro view, like if you can only see 30-40% of the data that exists at any one point, and 70% of that data says that you should change your yield optimization strategy from X to Y, but 90% of the 60% you couldn't see, coupled with the 30% that's left from the 40% you could see, is saying don't do that, then you start to see these issues where you can't quite understand what it is you're quite looking for because you don't see the entire picture. And I think by commoditizing the infrastructure in the middle, by just showing everyone this is what happened, this is who clicked on this ad, this is who saw this ad, this is who watched 30 seconds, and you get 100% of the data, then you can start to make more effective decisions on measurement, more effective decisions on what is actually affecting how your campaign performs, because you see all the data. I think it's simple as that, really. Like, the ad tech as a business, as I say, is a marvel. It's just a little bit obfuscated from one another. And I think largely that's because cloud infrastructure partners are expensive, right? Like
So the back end of actually delivering
Yeah.
the auction mechanics is quite expensive because AWS is
yeah.
making a shit ton of money.
Yeah, but if you try and tell a publisher that, they're like, well, we pay the same bills as well, so go away.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, oh, well, now it's like the margin's 40%. It's like, yeah, because that's the cost of your business, you know, that extra 15% you can't really talk about, but no one has any sympathy for you because the cost of your business is the cost of your business, right? You have to figure out how that works, and I think that is this world that we've got to here. And it's funny, Natasha and I are talking backstage, like if any other business that wasn't Google had been front-running clients, had been manipulating auctions, it would be a different outcome right now. So I just think it's wild to me that exists in the way it does, you know, and I just think like you just turn the lights on.
In fairness, it's just not Google. I mean, the point was there's cost being layered in everywhere, right? And it's not just the publishers who are suffering here, it's the marketers, right? They want to put every dollar to work. And as an industry, we've put our hands in the cookie jar, to use a really bad pun there.
That's a good one, yeah.
And there's an evolution coming. I mean, that infrastructure cost, right? If you can bring that way down, surely that frees up more spend for the poor publisher at the end of the chain.
It does. I think just in terms of your, the future-facing question, there's another angle to look at as well. So back in the day, I worked at Mindshare and had about 50 programmatic traders. They're amazing at what they did. They're all heroes and so on and so forth. You then jump forward 10 years to today, and once the infrastructure has been built to do some of the stuff which our company represents and does, you hold up a person who does what they do in terms of trading on a platform. Doesn't matter what platform. You look at what they can do, the capacity, the frequency, the granularity, the detail, the design of the campaigns, the management of the campaign. You look at all of the scope of what they do. And then when you layer in silicon as well as a person, and those two things working together, it just redefines everything again. And I think as companies like 59A offer that as a service to the marketplace, what's possible is totally redefined. And I remember your last ATS 3 years ago, when we were starting out, my point was that there'll be a renaissance in the industry, and it is happening, it is there. And I think the next 10 years are going to be phenomenal. I think there's a lot of negativity.
Do you think that there has been an enormous amount of focus on that middle sort of execution, media arbitrage play, and that we actually are now going to evolve away from that because we won't be allowed to do that? At least you can jump in there. You can't be allowed to do that because the cookie, in many ways, allowed a lot of this type of trading to happen. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. I actually think that deprecation of cookies and IDs will be the best thing that ever happened in this industry. And it's counterintuitive because programmatic is totally reliant on a cookie to sort of do like cookie matching and all the rest of it in ID graphs. But actually, us moving to a cookieless world, an ID-less world, and a world where privacy is front and foremost would actually be the best thing to happen to the industry.
Yeah, no, I do absolutely agree with that, but over the last sort of 20 months, we have seen some engineering that's gone on like no tomorrow. You know, people have fast-forwarded their roadmaps. And I think from a marketeer's perspective, they've sat back and they've had a really good look at what has been going on. It has given that opportunity. The AOP PwC report highlighted that. That was the start, I think, of that bigger conversation about what does individuals' stacks look like and what really is sitting in the middle, and is everything that's sitting in the middle really important to that business? And those questions...
Are you seeing more questions about what the value of some of that tech is?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, and sometimes you look at it and you go, well, why is this in here, or why is that in there? What are you actually using it for? But I think there is another problem that's sitting there is that people are not coming into the industry like they used to be. There isn't a skill set coming on. We're not bringing up a new skill set. And so there is what I would call the fear of change. People have got their stacks, it works, all right, it's not great, okay, we are losing money, but it works, right? Why do I then, I haven't got the people to be able to do it, I haven't got the hands-on keyboards people because they're being headhunted every 3 months. What do I do? So this next generation, and going back to Adam's point, it's about simplicity. Whatever comes forward has got to work, it's got to be efficient, and it has got to be seamless and simple for people to be able to operate and ultimately do the job.
Yep.
You know, I think it was Piers North said yesterday, I don't want to talk to anyone who can show me real value on turning the needle on my bottom line. And that is right. But so far, we've sat there with all these bits in the middle going, I'm not quite sure.
I think it's easy to, with the new rise of fragmentation and the death of the cookie and new technology comes to the front. I think it's so easy to throw a shroud of confusion and complexity just to then enhance margins and so on and so forth and enhance perceived value. And then we'll go into another decade of actually what is the value of X, Y, and Z. And it's a lot harder to simplify complexity and then put that and make it available to clients. And that, I think, is also going to be a key battleground, I guess, for the next 10 years as well. There's so many things at play, it's amazing.
Tasha, do you want to jump in on that one? That's the simplicity angle, and obviously the talent angle. Like there is a talent shortage. We actually should have had a panel on this. There's actually literally a talent shortage in this industry. Most of the agencies in London and globally have a 30% open headcount. Likewise, most of the ad tech companies can't hire people because they've either disappeared or become influencers on fucking TikTok. Who knows what they're doing. Or just have decided I'm going to plant trees and become like, love the world. This is what I'm going to do now. Instead of, arbitrage of cookies, which they should be doing arbitrage of cookies. But there is a talent problem. And how do we resolve that? Because there is no straight line into ad tech. Like, everybody in this stage fell into ad tech. Like literally, you didn't come out of university going, what will I do next? Jesus, I'll go to I'll become I'll work in ad ops. That's a great career, right? Try and explain that to your mother or your father over breakfast. What the hell do you do? I work in IT, Dad. Or I work in computers. But that's the Lisa's point. If we start building all this tech, who's gonna be able to use it? And that's a good point.
I think myself, a lot of other people I know, when we kind of fell into ad tech, it was because it was such a different and exciting and fast-paced and innovative environment. Everything was very new. It was constant change. For the right kind of personality who loves learning and adapting and thinking on their feet, it was a much better move than going into a more traditional sector. But I think, to be honest, a lot of the press that we've had as an industry for the last few years, a lot of the media have sort of decided that maybe they don't like us quite as much as they should do, considering a lot of them need us. That's obviously going to have a negative impact on people as they're leaving university. They're thinking, okay, I could go, or college or wherever, I could go into tech. It sounds interesting, but is it dodgy? Is it legitimate? What's the legality and the regulations around this? And I certainly think when I talk to grads or people in their early 20s, they are so much more on it than I know I was, and possibly still am even at this point. It's I think we need to really work on our image, to be honest with you.
I'd also say it's not for us to decide. Everyone in this room has kind of grown up with using centralized software in some capacity, right? Whether that's just your iPhone, whether that's Spotify, anything like that. And the beauty in that is that my preferences are stored in the centralized softwares that I use, and that Spotify is a good example. I have this existential fear that if Spotify goes under for whatever reason, 10 years of music that I've listened to won't exist anymore.
That was Spotify trying to wreck
It was, yeah. That was an audio ad, wasn't it?
It was a crap audio ad, programmatic.
But,
joking, Spotify. You've got great ads.
What's actually a better user experience for me is being able to take my preferences away from that one centralized platform. Like, it might be that there's a particular DJ that only has their music on SoundCloud, and I might want to get a particularly high quality album from Tidal, but largely most of my listening is done in Spotify, and there's a few exclusive releases on Apple. And if I was able to apply those preferences from the edge to those platforms, there's no need for these centralized platforms other than a shit-hot UX, right? And if you look at the world right now, everyone has just decentralized themselves to their own bedroom, to their home office, to sit in their house for the best part of 2 years. And there's been a whole cohort of kids that have essentially been decentralized from day one, right? And they will have, as you said, Natasha, a completely different view on how the internet should work for them. And actually, I think there's some crazy stat, like thousands of kids are starting their own companies, which is putting innovation back at the edge again. You don't have to go to a centralized office to get your expertise. You can go on Twitter, you can watch YouTube videos, you can start something in your bedroom, which you've been living in for 2 years, and do something different. Like it's going to be so interesting to see, I think, but I don't think it's for us to say like how we change our image. It'll be people that fall into it, as we all did, that have a totally different spin on it because they've had the last 2-3 years and they're a different generation to us, you know. So yeah, it is going to be interesting.
Do you still think, I mean, with this sort of move, right, and this is this is ATS, is an ad trading summit, right? We trade ads, right? Do you think that trading piece becomes harder without a scale ID or a scale cookie solution? I mean, because a lot of people are set up to be trading now, right? We talked about CTV yesterday with Jenny Bingham, who's completely brought her teams together around this. But does the fact that we don't have that scale ID make it harder as an industry to trade?
In terms of the demise of the
Yeah,
IDs.
I mean, like, think about the capabilities that have been built up over like a 10-year period, right? Like, you've worked in the trading team, Adam, and you know that there's a whole capability, whole skill set put into it. If we take away a lot of those IDs and what we've had legacy, does that kind of blunt what we've done as an industry? Because I think the progress we've made has been pretty impressive in terms of like being able to use data, apply data, look for quality and deliverable outcomes. But if you take that away, does that make it harder
No,
to
not
do
at
what we
all.
do?
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. So my ramble earlier around the data sets we look at, those 7 different buckets, to put some context into that. I mean, there's a lot of campaign data in our past 12 months. There's about 3.6 billion data points which we've gathered in 12 months. To put that into scale, you take 1 centimetre, that wraps around the world. A large majority of that is not ID and not cookie based. It's all thematic data. It's locations of your competitors across the entirety of the country, of thousands and thousands of different stores. It's footfall data, it's industry data, it's performance data, it's seasonality data, it's 15,000 different sporting moments which are happening. It's audience interactions, it's your customer database, it's 5 years of it's millions of sales. None of that is cookie based. None of that exists in the underlying boring, I don't mean to be controversial, the boring platforms.
So you think, like I'm just going to quote what Lavinia yesterday with MNC Saatchi, which was talking about adaptive, right? We are an adaptive industry. So we'll move, you're saying we'll move away from this ID-based stuff, from cookie-based stuff, into something else, a different metric to trade.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're already doing it. We will leverage the IDs and the cookies while they're there, but there is so much more which you can do with all these data sets which are not being leveraged, which arguably has a hell of a lot more value. An example, you have customers and we know the volume of customers from their CRM, their sales database. We have information about the number of households. We know therefore we know the market share down to individual postcode or zip codes. We know the actual market share of clients' businesses, and none of that's cookie-based. We can then layer in information about competitor footprint, seasonality, audience-based data. None of that's cookie-based, and then the value in there is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And none of it is based on cookies or IDs, and none of it is based on these underlying boring platforms either.
Interesting. Natasha, do you? I mean, you've worked in programmatic and particularly on the sales side stuff, but like, does that chime with you in terms of what I'm saying, that the metrics change, that we'll still be able to do a lot of trading?
Yeah, I think we are an adaptive industry and we can move quickly. I think it makes maybe a lot more sense to automate a lot more of those transactions than perhaps has been done in the past, because that's the only way that you can effectively leverage all of those data points that we're collecting, is to have some kind of a system that is moving quickly enough to actually take action when it's needed. I think, what was the second part of your question?
Well, it was just echoing what Adam was talking about, that the trading piece remains, but the metrics just change.
Yeah, so from a metric perspective, I think, again, everybody talks so much about standardization, and that was a huge part of the conversation yesterday. But I think one thing people miss out a lot is different standards and different metrics and measurements are needed for every single different type of media that there is. Like, for, the last, I don't know, however long, we've tried to apply standard, display performance KPIs to bloody video, and like, why are we still doing this?
Because we want simplicity.
It makes
we want to switch
sense.
it. I want to go.
It
doesn't create simplicity.
No, it doesn't. It does the complete
But I want to leave work at
opposite.
5 o'clock, Lisa, and feed my dog.
Opposite.
Sorry.
Oh, well, it's 5 o'clock.
Just on the metric point, just on that as well, because this renaissance thing, right? When if you get my example on the market share stuff, or a competitor volume in an area, or a seasonality thing, which is all in the custom algorithms we design, they're not only informing how the campaign's executed, but you can include them in the actual metrics of success. So we've had clients where they're like, I don't care about viewability or click-through rate or classical digital metrics. I know that these 200 locations across the country I'm getting battered by my competitors in the real world, because that's what the real world data is telling me. And I want to ensure that my digital activity covers those areas, increases my share of voice. None of that has got to do with classical digital metrics. So it opens up these strategic, powerful conversations which just aren't happening at the moment. There's so much opportunity, it's amazing.
Ben, can I just shift the gears a little bit? Because one of the things that this might actually help is user experience, right? Because at the minute, right, most websites are just unusable, right? Bloody cookie pop-ups and how many ads on a bloody page, like, it really annoys me and frustrates me that I see this just proliferation of crap on sites. Like, you run a ghost street on most big publisher sites, and they're running about 150 tags, which is insane, right? And the quality of actually, the user quality of the site, because I just want to read the content. I don't mind seeing ads, but I don't want to see like pop-up ads and outstream ads and bloody ads at the bottom of the page. And like, I'm not slagging off anybody in particular, but like the user experience has to improve. And this goes back to the publisher point, and this is in your sort of wheelhouse, in the sense that publishers need to think about high CPMs, right? Yeah. Better yield, right? Less ads on page. So do you think that that's going to clean up a lot of stuff? Because it is a problem, and publishers are losing traffic because of it, or to either like a reading app or whatever, which is a cleaner, like Apple News, for Christ's sake, it's an ad network itself. Yeah. But that will improve the user experience and help the publishers as well.
Definitely, like it's a pain in the arse to go on some websites, like you load it up and your fan starts whirring and your laptop is trying to download so many. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. And we really believe in that at Alchemy Exchange, and I kind of, to punctuate that point, we've got a program which we're calling Something for Nothing, and essentially we have $1 million which we are going to use to pay publishers not to show ads. So to get people beginning to use our infrastructure, to start to see how transparent it is, how instant it is, how auditable it is, and we don't want there to be as many ads on page. We want there to be fewer intermediaries, fewer points for revenue to leak, fewer points for belly fat ads, and who knows what else.
I saw yesterday, I just want to click across, I was in Business Insider, which is supposed to be top tier website, and all day all I seen was liver problem ads. So I don't know whether the AI must have been thinking that I'm going to drink a lot of alcohol, and they were going, yeah, you need to sort out your liver. But I couldn't believe the quality of, I mean, this is a reputable publisher. It goes back to your point.
So like, just don't do it. Come speak to us, basically, and we'll start to show fewer ads. You can sell more of it directly if there's an inventory that isn't that monetizable in the middle of the night in a small country of Europe. Doesn't matter. Like, we just want to start getting people to show fewer ads, to have a better user experience online. And we're not going to talk about it.
There's a part of me that thinks that will naturally happen because the dialogue is open again. Yeah. There is that conversation that is happening now, and the tech in the middle is a transacting bit. I think you said yesterday the IO is back in vogue.
The IO's back. Yeah. Lunch at Rocca.
Did it ever go?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
If we take middleware, then we'll talk about the old fax machine that used to send the IO. But I do think there will be a natural decrease in the volume of ads on the publishers, because
I think it's also, in a way, almost a downside of focusing consistently on the wrong metrics. The reason why we have this now, which wasn't there even a couple of years ago, was realistically when viewability became such a strong KPI. So all that's happening now is everybody's trying to just shove everything in the very top of the site, in the page, exactly where the eyeballs are going to be. So, box ticked, they've definitely seen it. In reality, nobody's seen it because there's 20 other things moving around the page. So, again, to your point of what metrics are relevant, how should we be...
Real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs a complete change.
We've got 5 minutes left, right? So I'm going to do a little test here, right? So all of you can answer answer the question. Now, the two boys can't talk about their own technology because they'll be just talking their own shop, right? But out of all of this sort of like innovation going on, what is exciting you the most, right? So we'll start with Lisa, and boys, you can say blockchain, you can say insights. You've got to mention some other tech, but as an experiment. So Lisa, we'll start with you. What is exciting you in terms of like the innovation piece right now, and where you see huge upside, and where you want to see it as well?
For me, it's thinking has come back into the game. The other area that's really interesting me at the moment is e-commerce and everything around that. I think there is so many wins there, and it's very, very interesting.
We actually have a panel later on called Commerce Media, which is fucking going to be great. Thank you, Lisa. Adam, now can't talk about. You got to mention another tech that you're excited about. There has to be one or two.
So, trying to backtrack from me saying the boring platforms, I think there's some interesting
The
ones.
workflow is sexy again.
Digital out of home is going to be amazing. I mean, it's not like, I'm not going to say that year of the mobile thing. CTV as well. So innovation in those two areas are phenomenal. And I think also like, not as exciting, but trying to downplay this sort of, oh my God, everything's going to end with the cookie and stuff. It's like, nah, get over it, it's not.
No, I agree with that one.
Those sort of areas, they're exciting. What it brings to the party.
Tasha.
Lisa stole one of my answers, which was going to be obviously...
He stole all your ideas.
She stole everything. No, around e-commerce, I think there's just been such a huge shift in people's buying habits over the last 2 years, forced by necessity, but everybody sort of realised the benefits of it. And we don't quite have, I think, the infrastructure in place now necessarily to actually support that to the extent that it needs. I think, more automation of trading, which might not be a particular popular opinion, but
hold on, that's a great
to transact quickly as and when it's needed, consolidating all those platforms. Do we really need to have a separate ad server and exchange, really, or could we kind of group everything together? So I think there's some really exciting, obviously not just you guys, but including really exciting new businesses coming out at the moment that are actually, they've identified problems and they've actually then identified solutions rather than just,
creating problems.
Exactly.
That's a very key thing.
Right?
Creating problems so they can create tech for. I love those businesses.
But I know how to fix that.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Ben, we'll finish with you. What's getting your pulse going apart from blockchain? What?
Fortnite.
Interesting. What?
Yeah.
The metaverse?
Well, not the metaverse, just what they managed to do as a company, right? Like they took a chunk out of Apple. They took them to court, and then now you can have other payment rails in iOS, which is a huge, huge line of Apple's revenue. I think it's like 30-40% or something you've seen like that. But not just that, they've done partnership with Travis Scott, where they had 30 million people visit Fortnite to watch a gig, which if I was an artist, that is my perfect gig. I can do a world tour from my front room and I sell more tickets than I'd ever be able to sell if I sold out the O2 100 times, And then the brand partnerships that then leads to. Like there was a cracking outdoor ad with Balenciaga and Fortnite. It was, as you say, an amazing digital out-of-home experience that was born in a world where you have a cohort of people that see actual value in a digital asset that makes their character look slightly different to the guys that they play with every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday night.
So it's kind of like that commerce, gaming overlap and payment. Like this is hilarious, right? It's like ad tech is everything, right? It really is. It's like the commerce media conversation is going to be great later on because it actually just shows you there is. I don't even know how ad tech didn't see this years ago. It's insane. But we'll talk about it later. But thank you guys for a brilliant conversation. I mean, the future is bright. Clearly, we've got lots of work to do. But thank you, Ben, Tasha, Adam, Lisa. Thank you very much. Round of applause, please.
Cheers.